Welcome back, y'all. I am Shaggy Philolitea. We are reading the Gospel according to John, and I'm going to back up because I want to read some of what we read yesterday, just again, not to refresh our memories, but I want to read it again. And I'm probably going to repeat my critique or my commentary on it, but if we remember, Jesus has just fed that big crowd and then run away to the mountain and then walked across the sea on foot, teleported from the boat to land, and the crowd woke up the next morning looking for him, so they go find him, and they're asking him bad questions, and they're making terrible theological arguments to him. John is showing us maybe less what the religious practice of Jesus' century, Jesus' decade, was, and more a general ignorance of the assembly of Jews in the Mediterranean at the time. And so I am intentionally using the Socratic apologetic language there. And so they say to him, "Then what sign do you do that we may see and believe you? What work do you perform?" Work here being miracles, magic. "Our fathers ate the manna in the wilderness, as it's written. He gave them bread," that is, Moses, "from heaven to eat." And Jesus said to them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, it was not Moses who gave you the bread from heaven, but my Father gives you the true bread from heaven." And that's true. Moses did not summon that bread in the Torah story. He didn't summon the bread. The bread rained out of a cloud that spoke to all of the people of Israel. It didn't speak out of Moses' mouth. It spoke out of a cloud. This is why the ancient aliens or the ancient astronauts people want to believe that it was actually like a UFO, like a spaceship that had enshrouded itself in a cloud and was using a megaphone to say these things down to them in Hebrew for some reason. "For the bread of God is he who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world." They said to him, "Sir, give us this bread always." Jesus said to them, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger, and whoever believes in me shall never thirst," like he explained to his apostles in the earlier scene at the well. We're ascetics. I'm an ascetic. If you come to me, you'll fill the bottomless void in your life. I talked about that this morning. Bottomless, yawning voids that we fill with painkillers of all kinds. "But I said to you that you have seen me and yet do not believe. All that the Father gives me will come to me, and whoever comes to me I will never cast out. For I have come down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me, that I should lose nothing of all that he has given me, but raise it up on the last day." We need to dive into what that sentence means, because that's a compound sentence that's got a lot going on in it. "For I have come down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me." Okay, this is a transmigration of the soul argument, and this is where your I am neo-pagan theosophist conception of masters and grand masters and ascended masters comes from. You'll hear people call it like a 33rd soul. And we have to be careful with this language, because this is a very specific thing that may or may not be very real. People play it very straight, like it's entirely real. but nobody can prove any of it. But if you were an ascended master, if you had left the body and all that you were now is an incarnate material astral projection, like I've discussed, Jesus being attributed, the ability to which Jesus has been attributed, an ability that's been attributed to Jesus. Oh man, my back is suddenly very tight and stiff as I'm talking. I've got myself pent up about this. Would you want the world to know what you were? And I think the reason I'm getting pent up is because I'm trying not to talk about Rob. I've been trying not to think about Rob at all. I just don't know how to pursue Rob. Fuck. This isn't supposed to be about this. Can you see the reaction that I'm having, like an allergic reaction to thinking about and trying to hold back talking about Rob? Because if I'm right about him, he tried to recreate Jesus's magic, and now I'm stuck in it. And so this isn't supposed to be about me and the supernatural stuff happening to me, but do you see how my eyes are all red and inflamed? I'm having like an allergic reaction to talking about this. And it's not just an allergic reaction, it's a pink eye reaction. My eyes itch like a motherfucker all of a sudden. I didn't eat anything unusual for me, and I wouldn't have gotten anything in my eyes anyway. Oh. Yeah, you're gonna have to suffer through this with me, because this might be symptomatic of the magic. And it might be why I had to leave off Mothman, is you needed to know the root symptoms, but you didn't need to know the specifics of that event, because that's going to confuse things, and we were right at where the event itself was going to get nutty. I must have gotten oil from my hair in my eyes. That's what must have happened. That's the only thing I could imagine. I must have gotten oil from my hair. I'm allergic to the oils in my hair. So I must have touched my face and my eyes after touching my hair or something. So yeah, if you were an ascended master, who would you want to know? Especially if you're just trying to do your own thing. Especially if the magic and the literature and my experience and my visual revelations, if you like, are right, and the source is a pillar of light, and we are photons. And when we differentiate from that pillar of light, it looks like conscious life. And we are only able, in the differentiation that we experience, to experience what we experience. And sometimes we experience things that aren't typical to the normal experience, because that pillar of light is conscious and has a will, and it has a will for the future, and some of us who incarnate with wills to experience, and that's called a Luciferian soul. That's a fallen sort of character that requires redemption. I want you to be very skeptical of what I'm saying, and I want you to put the dangers in the comments. All right, I want you to predict what I'm going to say when I circle back around. I have to circle back around to all of these in meditation videos that are going to go into talking to the future. This is as quickly as I can get through this. And so, Jesus is making the claim here of being an ascended master who is incarnated to execute the will of the source for an as yet indeterminate future. That's huge. That is a huge, huge magical claim. When they said, what is your work? What are your miracles? What is your magic? What is your practice? What is your fidelity? Is what Job's wife would have called it. That's not right. Integrity is the correct word. And integrity, as I've already defined elsewhere, is sticking to your idiosyncratic interpretation of what God is telling you to do. And so Jesus is saying that I'm here on my own integrity, but that integrity is God's will, not the will of man, not the will of me. And that's very much what I told those people on the bus yesterday, and I could tell that the bus driver's a believer. She's into what I'm doing. She likes the positive feedback of me being like, wow, that's so cool, and my general vibe. So we're going to read it again. For I have come down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me, that I should lose nothing of all that he has given me. That I should lose nothing of all that he is giving me. What that means is that when you're one of the photons in the source, you are the source. And so when you are the source gives you everything. Knowledge of everything, infinite power, these things. The ability to do and be whatever. Just blank, whatever. Because it doesn't really matter. The specific doesn't matter. Because God is omniscient and omnipotent. And so you're God when you're in the source. And then when you differentiate from the source, you're in the image of God. And what that means is that you lose something. There's something of what you had there that you lose. And what Jesus is saying is that I didn't lose it. He's making an omnipotence and omniscience claim. He's making, in modern terminology, he's making a claim to be connected to the Akashic records or the collective unconscious. Both ludicrous ideas. But this is where the ideas were gleaned, if you understand my use of language. Read Ruth, if you don't. Jesus continues, for this is the will of my Father, that everyone who looks on the Son and believes in him should have eternal life, and I will raise him up on the last day. So the Jews grumbled about him because he said, I am the bread that came down from heaven. They said, is not this Jesus, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How does he now say, I have come down from heaven? Jesus answered them, do not grumble among yourselves. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I will raise him up on the last day. It is written in the prophets, and they will all be taught by God. Everyone who has heard and learned from the Father comes to me. Not that anyone has seen the Father except he who is from God. He has seen the Father. Truly, truly, I say to you, whoever believes has eternal life. I am the bread. Your fathers ate the manna in the wilderness, and they died. This is the bread that comes down from heaven, and by they died means you forgot their names. Because this is Egyptian magic we're referencing when we talk about dying in this manner. They didn't have a psychopomp to carry their names into the afterlife with them, and this is a big deal to people back then. This is the bread that comes down from heaven, so that one may eat of it and not die. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever. And the bread that I will give for the life of the world is my flesh. The Jews then disputed among themselves, saying, "How can this man give us flesh to eat? Give us his flesh to eat." So Jesus said to them, you notice they're not talking to him. They're talking to themselves. He's speaking to them, and then nobody is directly challenging him. The Jews then disputed him, and Jesus said, "Truly, truly, I say to you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you." Now remember, they used to do this to the Apis bull, and they continued at the time this was written. They were doing this to the Mithraic bull. "Whoever feeds on my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up on the last day. For my flesh is true food, and my blood is true drink. Whoever feeds on my flesh and drinks my blood abides in me, and I in him. As the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father, so whoever feeds on me, he will also live because of me." And he's talking about gleaning from his words wisdom, which is to say, actionable life lessons. And you could take this passage as what I talk to you about in my confessions and my meditations and all over my work, is you don't have to take everything I say at face value. You don't have to take everything I say as meaningful. You don't even have to take everything I say as actionable. But if every episode you glean one thing out of it that you can make actionable, then I'm a farmer of wisdom, and you're taking your 10%. You're taking your percentage that I've left out for the poor, the hungry, the needy, the widow, the child of no father. Not every word has to be for you. Not every second has to be for you. But unless you watch all of them, you can't know which of them, which second. It may even be one single moment that was for you, and then... Because that's how it goes. But the thing is, just one doesn't do it. Right? Like a light bulb has to be plugged into the source of electricity. Just clicking on, but then not plugging into the source of reality doesn't do anything for you. And so you have to stay. You have to keep coming back, because you never know. You never know. You can never know. Like, case in point, Madge has been really up his own ass, really in his own head about not getting the momentum that he wants because of his move. It slowed down his velocity, and so now he's lost some of his he thought he had lost some of his momentum. And then that 83 cents that he had made is now up to almost $3. And it's like, well, you made $2 a lot faster than you made $1. Keep it up, buddy. You haven't lost any momentum. You haven't lost any steam. And today's performance was absolutely incredible. But I wouldn't have known that if I'd gone, well, he feels like he lost steam and I missed the first half hour, so I'm just not going to show up for the second. Like I said, you're there. Friends are there. No matter what. And I'm not going to be rude to the people on the bus and the people immediately around me who want my attention. But the second I can create alone time, I'm going to be rude to those people, everyone around me, to watch his thing. And I did. And it was awesome. I couldn't have made the better choice. And that's what Jesus is saying here. Whoever feeds on my words will live because of me. It will be because of me. And then they will owe me the reciprocation of bringing other people to this well to drink and feeding the poor and the hungry in the same way that I am. And so this isn't, as I've said before, this isn't an encouragement to do what I'm doing and try to steal what I'm doing and try to push me out of the market. But it is an invitation that if you feel the call, to join me. This is the bread that came down from heaven, not like the bread the fathers ate and died. Whoever feeds on this bread will live forever. Jesus said these things in the synagogue as he taught at Capernaum. When many of his disciples heard it, they said, "This is hard. This is a hard saying. Who can listen to it?" Many of the disciples. But Jesus, knowing in himself that his disciples were grumbling about this, said to them, "Do you take offense at this? Then what if you were to see the Son of Man ascending to where he was before? What if you were to watch me walk right into the heaven? Then, what if you were to see the Son of Man ascending to where he was before? It is the Spirit who gives life. The flesh is no help at all. The words that I have spoken to you are spirit and life. But there are some of you who do not believe. For Jesus knew from the beginning who those were who did not believe and who it was who would betray him. Notice that Judas, this is a Gnostic text. Judas is not among those who don't believe. And he said, "This is why I told you that no one can come to me unless it is granted him by the Father." After this, many of his disciples turned back and no longer walked with him. So Jesus said to the 12, "Do you want to go away as well?" Simon Peter answered him, "Lord, to whom shall we go? To whom shall we go?" What a weird question. What a weird codependent relationship these 12 men have on Jesus. To whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life, and we have believed, and have come to know that you are the Holy One of God. Jesus answered them, "Did I not choose you, the 12? And yet one of you is a devil." He spoke of Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, for he, one of the 12, was going to betray him. I don't believe that. I believe that was tacked on after the Council of Nicaea, and that, in fact, who he's speaking about is Simon Peter himself. The way this is written, except for these parentheticals and these obvious additions, is that the ghost of John the Baptist does not like Simon Peter, and none of them did. After this, Jesus went about in Galilee. He would not go about in Judea because the Jews were seeking to kill him. Now the Jews' feast of booths was at hand, so his brothers said to him, "Leave here and go to Judea, that your disciples may see the works you are doing. For no one works in secret if he seeks to be known openly." What he's saying is, go to a big city and get famous. If you really want to be what you say you are, go get famous. Why are you here? Go get famous. He keeps saying that he can't get famous in his hometown and knows it, but he still is preaching there. Why? Well, because this is written in the future, and Jesus died. So if you don't foreshadow that all of his choices were made deliberately to get his ass dead, then you leave yourself the hole that actual first decade Christians had of, holy shit, the king of our nation state died a slave's death? That was appalling to a lot of Mediterraneaners. For not even his brothers believed in him. Jesus said to them, "My time is not yet come, but your time is always here. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify about it that its works are evil. You go up to the feast. I am not going up to this feast. For my time has not yet fully come." After saying this, he remained in Galilee. Remember, he's the bread and the wine, remember? So you go to the feast. Well, you know the feast is an orgy, and the orgy is a Dionysian rite. And so when they asked, well, what good can come out of Bethlehem? The answer is very little, because they still practice the old rites, the old Sabbaths, the old Asherah ceremonies. And as I told you with the Samaritans, if he's in a part of the world that's majority Samaritan still, the Samaritans have never stopped practicing this. That's why they've always been verboten. But after his brothers had gone up to the feast, then he also went up, not publicly, but in private. The Jews were looking for him at the feast and saying, "Where is he?" And there was much muttering about him among the people. While some said, "He's a good man," others said, "No, he's leading the people astray." Yet for fear of the Jews, no one spoke openly of him. And see, this is what I was worried about yesterday on the bus, is that once people know you're trying to be a good person, the thing they're going to try to do is to immediately talk shit about you. But when I said that I have a lot of free time, implying that I'm homeless now, and I'm trying to spend it helping people, they all You're doing it. You are helping all of us. And that's what he's saying. That's what the author here is saying, but that's what Jesus is telling us. About the middle of the feast, Jesus went up into the temple and began teaching. The Jews therefore marveled, saying, "How is it that this man has learning when he has never studied?" So Jesus answers them, "My teaching is not mine, but is his who sent me. If anyone's will is to do God's will, he will know whether the teaching is from God or whether I am speaking on my own authority. The one who speaks on his own authority seeks his own glory, but the one who seeks the glory of him who sent them is true, and in him there is no falsehood. Has not Moses given you the law? Yet none of you keeps the law. Why do you seek to kill me?" The crowd answered, "You have a demon. Who is seeking to kill you?" That "you have a demon" is again a reference to Plato, Socrates' demon. You have a demon. You must be like Socrates. You have an idiosyncratic, but it's not God speaking. It's some other being. But that is why they killed Socrates. They did accuse him of that thing. Jesus answered them, "I did one work, and you all marvel at it. Moses gave you circumcision, not that it's from Moses, but from the fathers, and you circumcise a man on the Sabbath. If on the Sabbath a man receives circumcision, so that the law of Moses may not be broken, are you angry with me because of the Sabbath I made a man's whole body well? Do not judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment." Some of the people of Jerusalem therefore said, "Is not this the man whom they seek to kill? And here he is speaking openly, and they say nothing to him. Can it be that the authorities really know that this is the Christ? But we know where this man comes from, and when the Christ appears, no one will know where he comes from." So Jesus proclaims, as he taught in the temple, "You know me, and you know where I come from. But I have not come of my own accord. He who sent me is true, and him you do not know. I know him, for I have come from him, and he sent me." So they were seeking to arrest him, but no one laid a hand on him because his hour had not yet come. Yet many of the people believed in him. They said, "When the Christ appears, will he do more signs than this man has done?" They like to speak in sarcastic, biting witticisms, and that's one of them. The Pharisees heard the crowd muttering these things about him, and the chief priests and Pharisees sent officers to arrest him. Jesus then said, "I will be with you a little longer, and then I am going to him who sent me. You will seek me, and you will not find me. Where I am, you cannot come." The Jews said to one another, "Where does this man intend to go, that we will not find him? Does he intend to go to the dispersion among the Greeks and teach the Greeks? What does he mean by saying, 'You will seek me, and you will not find me, and where I am, you cannot come'?" This is funny, because modern people want to act like first century Jews didn't know that they were in diaspora among the Greeks of Crete and the mainland. But of course they were in diaspora, dispersion among the Greeks and the rest of the Mediterranean. That's what the Torah is about. That's the whole purpose of this book being canonized when it was. Now, the Jewish didn't get canonized outside of the Septuagint until much later than the Christian Bible, if my memory serves, and I am correct in my memory. But that's besides the point in a major way. The Torah exists. The Pentateuch exists. So there's a unifying story. And the unifying story is for a Greek-speaking audience, a Greek-speaking educated audience. And here they are saying to Jesus, what the fuck are you doing teaching in the synagogue and you don't speak Greek? You can't read the Septuagint. And we all know that the Hebrew, by the first century, was 1 century away from being a dead language. No one could read that. And so if you know a little bit about the way Latin went in the medieval West, you know exactly what the Hebrew Bible went through. Jesus is up here talking in Hebrew, and they're like, the fuck did he learn Hebrew? And why the fuck is he not speaking in Greek? What is going on? What the fuck can you possibly know about the... Oh, Well, how could... Oh. Well, you must have a demon. And that's where the witch hunt comes from. Because Bell Witch. Witches weren't the women. Witches were the spirits that they made contracts with to do things. So like the Bell Witch was able to do insane and impossible things, like know what the time and temperature were in France and be right in the 17 or 16, maybe 1800s. And so that's the end of this episode. Dizzying array of metatext. This has it all. The Gospel according to John, it has it all, because it's a Gnostic text. It's a grimoire. It's a magic text. And so you know what I say at the end of these? Take care of yourselves, kids.